Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Mad Madam Mel podcast. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back, hi. And if you're a new viewer, welcome to the channel. My name's Mel and I live on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland with my husband and our two kitties, Holly and Willow, and a selection of ducks and chickens. We have a small holding. This is a podcast primarily about fibre crafts, mostly knitting and spinning, with some other bits and pieces thrown in when I do it, when I get around to it. I'm a botanical dyer and I work from home here on the Orkney, and if you want to find me anywhere else on social media, you'll find me as Mad Madam Mel, whether that be Ravelry or Instagram or Facebook or any of the usual places, including Etsy. You'll find me as Mad Madam Mel. Just Google it, you'll find me there somewhere. So yes, this is a podcast primarily about fibre crafts, and I've kind of been a bit, what's the word? Not away from YouTube for it hasn't been very long. It's only been a few weeks since my last podcast, but I've kind of been out of crafting so much as I would normally, so I haven't really podcasted, and maybe that shouldn't really make much difference, but it has. And life's been really busy. We are still renovating our property. We've been here for a few years now, and it was quite tumbled down, but it needed a lot of work when we moved in, but I'll talk a bit more about that later on and the reasons for why I haven't podcasted in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So let's get on. Actually the light's not very great today. My light's never very great here anyway. Orkney, we don't have it's cloudy a lot and we have very thick walls and deep set windows, so the lighting's never brilliant. But actually this is quite a bit earlier than I would normally film. I don't normally film this early in the morning, but my youngest son is visiting during his college summer break, and I'm hoping to get this recorded before he's up and about. But if you start hearing creaking, it'll be because the bedroom's upstairs above me, so that's why it's so early and it's a little bit dark. So let's get on to the nitty-gritty parts of the podcast, and then we'll have waffly bits a bit later on. So I haven't knitted huge amounts, but I have knit some, and I've done quite a bit of spinning because we've got 2 to fleece at the moment. So knitting first. First of all, finished objects. I have 2 finished objects, one with me, one not, because one was a gift, but I did take photos. So the first finished object is a cowl that I made for myself for this autumn. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I do love autumn, even though we don't really get autumn in Orkney. Well, we do, but it's not like autumn like you picture it. It basically consists of lots of wind and rain and storms and the leaves disappearing in the space of about 2 days. But anyway, I knitted this cowl. This is not going to show up on camera. I'll try and stretch it out. It's a cable cowl. Let me try and find a good spot where you can see the cabling. Nope, not there. You can kind of see it there. But this design is by Tiny Owl Knits, and it's called Twig. Normally it would be knit in a plain yarn. I've got the pattern somewhere. Yes, I have. And normally it would look like this. Well, it does look like this. It's just that you can't see the patterning. And ignore the spits and spots on this pattern. I've actually knit this twice. I knitted it for a gift once before as well. But I've never actually made it for myself. Now, last winter, my youngest sister gifted me a hat and wristies that she knit. She has her own yarn knitting business where she knits hats and gloves and that sort of thing. Drifting Gypsies Woolcrafts, that's what she's called. And she gifted me a hat and wristies, I think it was for Christmas, in a colourway of hers that I really liked, which was an autumn colourway, and they were very similar colours to this, really close to this. And last Christmas I ordered myself a lot of fibre for my Christmas box, and in it was a particular braid I wanted from Created by LCB, Leandra, Created by LCB, and the colourway was Spiced Cider on BFL, and I bought the fibre and I spun this up earlier this year,
and I realised that it looked very similar to the yarns that my sister had knit my hat and wristies out of. So I thought, oh, I'll use that because it's only 4 ounces, so it's what, 100 and something grams. I'll knit a cowl for myself, and I'll knit a cable cowl so that I can wear it with the ones that Charlotte had already made for me. So that's what I've done. I've not blocked this yet. It really needs blocking. If it was in a plain yarn, you probably would be able to see the cabling better and I wouldn't block it, but because it's quite patterned, I'm going to stretch it out a little bit just so you can see the big centre braid. Like I said, you can't really see it on camera very well, but there is a big central cable braid and 2 fine braids at the edges, and that'll help show the cabling more, but you can see it better in real life. So that's my first finished object, and that was for me because I'm a bit of a selfish knitter. Actually no, I do knit gifts, but I have a lot of things I want to knit for myself too. So that is my first finished object. And actually the pattern, I keep blowing. Every time I look away from the camera, the light blows out. I'm trying not to put the artificial lights on. I could do with one of those light boxes. So cabling, I haven't done a lot of cabling, and this has got twisted stitches in. It's got like cable, you know, like cable 4 forwards, cable 4 back, whatever. But it's also got these twisted stitches, and I'd never come across before. Twist 3 back, and oh, that took some getting my head around. I could see it on paper, but it took me a while to figure out a system in my head so I wouldn't have to look at the instructions for the stitch every time I did the stitch, but we got there. The only other finished object was actually a gift for my sister, and it was a knitted hood, like a little, you would call them a vest, I think, in the States, but in this country we call it like a waistcoat with a big hood attached to it. Now my sister's got really, really long hair and dreadlocks, so she needed a really big hood. I might have overdone it with the hood, but a really big hood, and the pattern I used was called Flower on My Hood, and I can't pronounce the name of the designer, so I will put it up on screen here or here or here or here, and I will link it below, and I will insert photos somewhere around here. And it was for her birthday. It was ready. She was doing a music festival where she had a stall for her knitwear, and I thought this would be perfect if the weather turns a bit rubbish, because it often does. She went to the Eden Festival in southwest Scotland, and it was actually really nice this year, but sometimes it can get really horrible. So it's this big hood and this waistcoat with a big button on it, and it took ages. It took up so much yarn. I was hoping to use up some yarn that I had left over from a scarf I did with my husband a while back, and he never actually wore this scarf, which is good because I end up having to rip out the scarf for excess yarn because it took up so much yarn, but it's out my stash now, so that's good. One of my plans for this year was to use up some of my older yarns in my stash that are not really getting used for gifts for other people. So I've done cowls and hats and stuff like that, and this was a big chunk of stash out the way, which is great. So that's finished knitting objects. That's only 2 because I haven't, like I said, done crafting stuff. But works in progress, I have 2 knitting. Is it blowing out again? 2 knitting projects. The first one, we'll quickly get out of the way, is this pair of bloomin' vanilla socks I've been working on for since March, because it's my travel project. It's for in the car. And it's my vanilla socks, and whoa, there we go again. And this yarn I finally got up to pretty much up to the ankle. This yarn is from Mothie and the Squid, with the toes in, oh, this is going to challenge me. It's Ruby something. I'll come back to that. The main body is Advent, and it's in a sparkle, merino nylon sparkle, and I can't remember the name of the colour of the toe. It's Ruby Tiger Moth, that's it. So what I did is at EYF this year I bought some 3 3 mini skeins from Mothie and the Squid to make a pair of socks. I did something very similar than 2 other of her colourways on a pair of socks I'm actually wearing at the moment, which was my Christmas ones. But what I did was I bought 2 mini skeins of the Advent and 1 mini skein of the Ruby Tiger Moth. And I split, no I didn't split, but I've knitted the toe, I knitted that, I knitted the heel, and I've stopped when I've almost run out of 1 skein of the main body of that sock. And what I'm going to do is transfer these onto another cable needle, and I'll start knitting the other ones with the other half of the ball of that one and the second skein of the Advent, and get to the same point, and then I'll start knitting them together, not literally together, but knitting them at the same time, so I don't run out of 1 skein before the other, then I have 1 sock shorter than the other. And then when the Advents all run out, whatever's left of this, I will knit the rib for both socks with the leftovers of that skein. And I've used my usual vanilla sock knitting pattern, my favourite go-to vanilla sock pattern, which is this one, and I'm going to try and read it on the screen backwards. Vanilla sock with gusset and choice of reinforced heel by Johto. And I really like this pattern. It's a toe up. I like toe up socks, so if I don't run out of yarn, and it's great. So my other work in progress is another cowl. I don't know if it's for myself or for a gift. It'll probably be for a gift, and I only cast this on last night, so there's not a lot of it. And the pattern is Houndstooth check cowl. This one, see it there, by Megan Knit Prints, and this is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I'm using up stash. Oh, blowing out again. And I keep dropping things. What have I dropped? I've dropped my yarn. So I'm using up bits and pieces. I'm using up 3 different leftover balls of wool for this. I'm using a leftovers of this yarn, which is Wendy Norse Chunky in the porpoise colourway. And I had this left over from a cowl I made myself a few years back. I got this yarn on sale on holiday in Yorkshire in some I don't know what you would call it, one of these shops that sells everything. And it's 50% acrylic, 50% wool, single, and I'm using 2 shades of Debbie Bliss Rialto Chunky in black and undyed. That's those. And what I'm doing, or plan to do, is I split the grey into 2 equal length balls. I just unwound the whole lot and split it exactly equal. And I've been using 1 ball. I've used up the entire first ball on a bottom garter band. You can see it like that. And then I'm going to knit all the centre part in the Houndstooth check, the black and white, until I run out of yarn. And then this is the other half of what I originally had. I will knit a border at the top in garter with that, bind off, and cowl. If there's anything left of the Debbie Bliss, I don't know what I'll do with it. It'll maybe get used for tying skeins of yarn up or something. So yeah, and that'll be another gift to go in the gift stash. It's working out quite well. I'm not sure who'll get it yet, but I don't know. I can't say, because then if people watch it, then they're gonna know. So that's my latest cast on. But plans, I have lots of plans. Now that I'm kind of out of my knitting funk, as it were. I wasn't really, it was time. I had a lot of socks I was knitting for Charlotte for her festival. I showed on the previous podcast a pair that I was working on. I think I knit 4 or 5 pairs of socks for her stall. And it kind of got a bit... and I wasn't getting a chance to work on my own stuff, and I was still working on her hood. Everything seemed, there was lots and lots of knitting going on, and none of it was for me. So selfish knitter. But I have lots of plans. I plan to do the year-long knit-along, hosted by Ellie at Skein Dyer, and for the first pairs I've planned Flora by Skein Dyer and the pumpkin spice mittens, plus I want to do the tortoise and the hare gauntlets by Kate Davies. I've had the yarns for those ones for a good 4 or 5 years now, sitting around, and I'll be using Shetland Spindrift. Yes, Spindrift. Is it Jameson's of Shetland or Jameson's? Jameson's Spindrift for that, and I have the yarns for the other mittens as well. So that's, once this cowl, because this cowl should be really quick knit, this will be done in, depending on time, it'll be done in the next day or two, and then I can start working on mittens. After that I'm not sure, but that's really what I want to start on next. So that brings us, I think, all of the, let me just check my notes, I think, yeah, that's the knitting part over with. We're on to spinning. Now spinning I've done quite a bit. If you spin, you would probably know at the moment it is something called Tour de Fleece, and if you don't know what that is, basically during the Tour de France each year, for the last few years, I've had a spinning event called Tour de Fleece. The idea being that you spin on your spinning wheel or spindle, you spin yarn during the days, the stages of the Tour de Fleece, with the rest, having rest days when the cyclists have rest days, and challenge days on the particularly challenging stages of the Tour de Fleece. So this is my first year doing Tour de Fleece. I haven't been able to commit a lot of time to spinning at exactly that time in the past, but this year I plan to do it. So we started what would it be, a week ago, just over a week ago, and I can tell you what I've been working on. So I had plans to work through 3 spinning bats that I got at EYF from Louise at Spin City UK. I've got through more than 1.5 of those plus extras. So the first couple of days I was working on this bobbin. This is not plied up yet. I haven't actually plied the bats up yet, and I'll explain why. This is the first bat that I spun up, and this took 2 or 3 days. There's 100 grams or thereabouts on this bobbin. I wouldn't normally fill a bobbin that full with a single, but I have 2 of these bats the same, or as identical as bats ever get, because I'm going to ply the 2 bats together to make a 200 gram skein of yarn. And I'm spinning it quite fine because I'm after an average of a fingering weight. This is not going to show an average of a fingering weight once it's plied up. And that was my first fibre of the Tour de Fleece. Now last Tuesday was challenge day 1, and I'm part of 3 teams. You can be more than 1 team. I'm in the rookies team, which is first year Tour de Fleece participants through the Ravelry group. I'm also on the Spin City UK chatter thread team, which is quite informal, and also my main team is the Created by LCB Tour de Fleece team, which is the lady that dyes fibre as well. So challenge days, the first challenge day was last Tuesday, and the challenge set by Leandra at Created by LCB was to spin something you've tried, a new technique, do something you've never done before, which is what I did. So I made this yarn. This is done, I spun beehives. I've never spun beehives before, and it's one of those things I've seen and thought they were really pretty. So this I haven't set the twist in this yet, but these are my attempt at beehives. I'm trying to find a nice one. They're like curly twist, like little shells. Oh, they're pretty. And this is a single, which is why it's quite twisty still. It hasn't been plied. It isn't going to be plied because beehives are coils spun in a single at the same time as spinning the single. You can do coils. Coils are slightly different. Coils are when you spin fibre around another fibre, a core thread, and then you add coils, and you make the coils whilst you're spinning around that core. But this, beehives are done whilst you're spinning a single. There is no core in this yarn. So there's quite a bit of over twisting in one or two places where I've done the coils. And the fibre I've used, the blue, it's all different tones, like a tonal blue. This is merino that I hand dyed with indigo a while back, and the coils are just undyed merino. They come out really pretty. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to use this for. I'm not entirely sure how I'm supposed to knit a yarn with beehives in it. I hadn't thought about that. That's going to be interesting, or really hard. But I'm really pleased with it. There's 112 grams total and 206 yards. Yes, I know I'm mixing up my imperial and metric. I use yards when I'm measuring the length because of my niddy noddy, but weight I use grams because I'm in Europe. So that was my challenge did last Tuesday. The challenge this Tuesday, which is tomorrow, because today's Monday, it's supposed to be rest day, I won't be resting, is supposed to be to spin something, spin a fibre you wouldn't normally reach for, either because you've spun it before and you hated it, or thought never again, or you just haven't gotten around to trying it and you thought you'd need more experience, that sort of thing. And I've got a couple of plans for that. Either I have some rambouillet, I have a rambouillet braid that I got from Create by LCB. I've never spun rambouillet. It's just really weird spongy textured fibre. It's like sponge, literally. I've never spun that. So I might do that. Also, I've got some Kent Romney, which I've never spun before, and I have some Rainbow Firestar. I'm tempted to make a sock yarn with the Kent Romney and the Rainbow undyed Kent Romney and the Rainbow Firestar, and either spin them together or ply them to make a single of each and ply them together to make an unusual sparkly sock yarn. I haven't decided, so those are my options for tomorrow. Also, I needed an extra bobbin. I was running out of bobbins for my wheel. I haven't got many, so I plied up some of this. Now this is North Ronaldsay yarn, and not many people have spun with this. It is a local rare breed. North Ronaldsay is one of the northern, it's an outer island of Orkney. Orkney is a series of islands. I live on the mainland of Orkney, which is not on mainland Scotland, it is an island. But Orkney has a series, lots of different islands, and the most northerly inhabited, I'm not sure there's any above it, but the most northerly inhabited is North Ronaldsay. And North Ronaldsay has its own sheep breed, which is North Ronaldsay yarn. And these sheep are really unusual. They spend most of the year on the beach grazing seaweed. And apparently the meat is supposed to be really tasty. I've not actually tried it before. But the fibre is really, really nice. Now this, I spun this a while back and it's been sitting on a bobbin, not doing anything. So I wound it off into a centre pull ball and plied it up. And I have 99 yards, 52 grams of that. Now if you've never spun with North Ronaldsay, it can depend upon the sheep and depend upon how the fibre's been prepped as to how it feels. I combed this because I've got the fleeces. I've got half a dozen North Ronaldsay fleeces I bought from the lady who lives up on North Ronaldsay, or one of the ladies that lives on North Ronaldsay. Obviously there's more than one. And I have washed this. I washed it and then I combed the fibre and made it into, not rollags, because rollags you would roll sort of like the fibres would be going like that and you would roll a rollag like that, but I actually rolled it sideways to make it kind of like little worsted rollags. And I spun this. Now North Ronaldsay is unusual. The sheep have a very soft undercoat. It's beautifully soft. So I've just seen a cat messing about outside. And they have long guard hairs. The guard hairs are what makes the wool prickly. Now I bought some lace weight North Ronaldsay from where I get my yarns to dye a while back, and it was so coarse I can't sell it. I only bought a few skeins fortunately, but it's so coarse I can't sell it. So I'm going to be using that for coarse spinning. But this is really soft. This, I haven't took many of the guard hairs out. So if I put that on my neck, I would put it on, prickle wise, I'd put it on a par with Shetland. In other words, it's not bad. I probably wouldn't wear it as a cowl, but I could wear it as a sweater. And I have a lot of this, and I plan on making a sweater. But softness wise, it is softer than Shetland. It's hard to describe. Shetland is, it's got that ever so slight prickle factor, but I wouldn't call it a soft yarn as such. It's not coarse, but it's not soft. This is soft, kind of like a lamb's wool. It's really nice. And if you combed out all the guard hairs of North Ronaldsay, you would have something super special, really soft. And if you ever get a North Ronaldsay, like a rogue, like a sheepskin, they are beautifully soft, just stunningly soft. So yes, if you ever get a chance to spin with North Ronaldsay, you should try that. Or get some North Ronaldsay wools. Like, some wools are better than others. I've felt some really coarse North Ronaldsay wools, and I've felt some really nicely spun North Ronaldsay. The lady whose shop I sell the majority of my yarns in up here, Annie Glue, she stocks some really nice spun undyed North Ronaldsay wool. Really nice. So yeah, I plied that up, and also I started the second bat. Whoop, there we go again, from Louise at Spin City, and it's this one. This, I have one bat in this colourway, so I've spun half of it onto one bobbin, and I'm going to spin the other half onto another bobbin and ply those together, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. So when I have finished this yarn and finished the second bobbin and plied it, I'll have 200 grams. And when I finish the second bobbin of this one and plied them together, lots of sparkles. I end up covered in this stuff when I'm spinning. I will have 100 grams of that, so it's 300 grams. And together, I'm going to knit a shawl with the 2 finished yarns. I can't remember what it's called. It'll come back to me, hopefully. If not, I will put it on screen. And the pattern, it's like a triangle shaped shawl, but without a point. It's kind of rounded, and it's got these bands that taper inwards and overlap each other in 2 different colours. And the 2 different shades of blue are what I'm going to do. And the interlink, some of the bands have you alternating or making a pattern with the 2 different colours. So I wanted something that had similar shades, but they would stand out against each other, but not too much, hence the 2 different shades of blue. So I still have the other half of the dark blue to spin. You can see that, you see those sparkles there, that is Rainbow Firestar, with the majority of it being on the green side. I have nearly 100 grams of that Firestar upstairs. I obviously go the same supplier as Louise at Spin City UK, and I have a bag of that upstairs, which is what I was talking about, plying with the Kent Romney. So that against a plain white is going to look pretty. So that's the other half. I'm going to start that. In fact, I've already started that. I've got that far. So far, you can see that Firestar against that aqua. Get that. It's so bright. There we go. Try and get it to focus. I'm going to block me off. So will that work? Will that work? Will it work? All you can see is my hand. There. So I have the rest of that to do, and I'll plan on getting as much of that done today as possible, and hopefully plying it. And then I also have the second bat of the light blue to do as well. The light blue colourway is called Snow Queen,
and the dark blue I believe is called Azurite. So really pretty. So that's that part. I think that's spinning. So I did mention what I was planning on doing next. I've also got next Tuesday is the 3rd challenge day, and it's spin something predominantly green. I have a not bright, but a green to silver to white gradient bat that I got from Frost Yarn for my birthday, and I will planning on spinning that, probably coarse spinning it to keep the gradient nice and clean. That's my plan. Okay, that's spin. Oh, light. Hi. Acquisitions. Only 2. There is one a little bit more wool, but nothing really to write home about. But my main 2 acquisitions. First of all, one yarny acquisition. I bought in the sale. There we go again. Some yarn. I've got a pattern I really want to make, and it's the Hedwig Shawl by Tiny Owl Knits. I've loved that shawl. I bought, as soon as it came out, I bought the pattern. I haven't actually done it yet, but I bought the pattern. But I wanted some really nice yarn to go with it, and the right shade of white. It's like a white triangle shawl with grey intarsia Hedwig patterning on it. And I needed the right shade. It needed to be in really bright white. So I bought this, and this is really soft. I want something nice and soft against my skin. And I got a whole bunch of Willow and Lark Nest. And I got it in these 2 colourways, which as you see is really bright white, and this one. The white is shade Snowdrop, shade 200, and the grey is 204 Shadow Grey, and they're going to go really nicely together. And this yarn is 69% wool, extra fine merino, 11% cashmere, 20% tencel. I love tencel. Tencel is my new favourite vegetable fibre. Is it technically vegetable fibre? Yeah, it's cellulose. I've got one of my new bases that I bought for dyeing with is a 50% merino, 50% tencel, and it's so soft and shiny. It's beautiful. One of my main bases I already dye with is a merino bamboo, and I love that because it's so soft, and it's got this gentle heathered look to it because the bamboo doesn't take the botanical, because our botanical dye doesn't take the botanical dyes the same way that the wool does. So you get this softened effect to the dyes. It's beautiful and it's really soft. But tencel has bamboo has a slight sheen, but tencel really does have a really nice shine to it. It's almost like a sparkle, but not. And it won't pick up it might pick up camera, probably not. But it has this subtle sheen and sparkle to it, which is really beautiful. So that I bought, how many of those? 6 of those, I think. I've got 300 grams of the white and 100 grams of the grey. I'm hoping that's enough. The other acquisition, sure nothing falls off, is a book. I actually picked this up from the charity shop. You call it a thrift store in the US, I believe. And it's this one, the Tapestry Collection. It's one of the rowing books. Usually, I don't normally buy the rowing books because most of the patterns I'll never use. But this one actually has some good basic sweater shapes in it, which is nice. It's got 9-10 patterns if you include a pair of basic wristies in here, and I particularly like, see what I'm doing, this one, though I would knit it a little longer, and I like this one here. Yeah, and I picked this up for like 50 pence.
So it was funny, when I got home I realised I actually have a ball of this yarn in my stash. Not enough to do a sweater, but I do actually have a ball of this in my stash. I didn't get it for £3, I got it for 50p. So yeah, really pleased with that. And that's a nice basic sweater on the back too. It's a shame the size range on these are not brilliant. For example, the one that's on the back goes from bust size 32 inches, that's 82 centimeters, up to 46 inches, which is 170. So there we go. I will have to upsize that a little bit for my bust size, but I'm really pleased with that. So that was the other main acquisition. So what else we got? Life stuff. Let's get the waffly bit out of the way. Right. As I said, I haven't really had much time or inclination really, but mostly it's been time since doing the knitting for Charlotte. First of all, we have been renovating. We have a small holding, and we have a cottage and a barn extension that we're all renovating through. And when we bought the property, it hadn't been lived in for quite a long time, and it needed a lot of work. A lot of the rooms, this one particular, this was the first room we did, and there was no floor. The walls were just bare stone and half chipped off old plaster. There was an old tongue and groove ceiling which we ripped out, so it was beyond, it needed renewing, and it was just a shell basically. Our bedroom that we're using at present was about the most decent room, and it had half its plasterboard ripped off as well. So we've been working through it. Just before we moved up, we worked on it a bit for a couple of years, and then when we moved here, we've been working on it over the years as well. And we're currently working on the kitchen. I have a temporary kitchen at the moment, which I've had for the last nearly 9 years. It's moved from room to room as we've renovated rooms, and it's been in what will be the sun lounge at the moment for about 4, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. It's really bad, but hopefully fingers crossed and touch wood, I'll be in my proper kitchen for Christmas. I'm hoping. It's in the barn section, so there's been lots of work in there. We're working on electrics and lighting and stuff at the moment. So for example, you think, oh, it doesn't take long to do stuff, and I'm not doing a lot of the building work. I'm helping, but my husband's doing the majority of it. But it's things like, we decided, because we were putting the insulation in the roof, realised that we're going to have to put the wiring in for the electrics before we can finish the roof. And it took an entire day of working out where the lighting was going, where the switches were going, how the lighting ring would be put. So things that take much longer than you expect them to, and that's fitting in amongst all the rest of the life stuff. So that's when I say it's been busy. It's been mostly busy doing things like that take a lot longer than you expect them to take. Been working so much on it this year that the small holding itself has took quite a back seat. So we've hardly got any vegetables growing in the garden at all. We've got lots of onions, garlic, and magic potatoes, which is basically where we had potatoes growing last year, and we've obviously missed 1 or 2 tubers, and they've grown. So we have like 3 potatoes just magically grow themselves. And that's pretty much it. We've hardly done anything. It hasn't been the priority this year. There's been other years where we've grown lots and lots of stuff. This year is definitely not one of them. Also, we've been having vehicle problems. My husband does all his own mechanics as well, because he's glutton for punishment. And we bought a second vehicle for my husband so that I can have my car to myself. And it's took so much work, so much welding and new brake pipes and everything. It's just took so much time to do everything. And I'm helping for this, that and the other, and it's just time. It's just eating up, basically. So that's why I haven't had so much crafting time. Plus, it's summer. So in Orkney we have really bad weather in the winter.
and we get a lot of visitors, not us personally, but Orkney gets a lot of visitors over the summer. So the season starts, it's like any sort of place that gets a lot of tourists, and we have cruise liners come in. I think this is another record year for the amount that's arriving. There's cruise liners in most days, and it can bring several thousand people to the islands, and the whole population of the Orkney Islands is only about 22,000. So we've got boats coming in which has thousands of people on at times. And the season starts in sort of March time, and it'll run through to, it'll taper off in sort of the end of August, September, but it'll run through till about October. I think the last cruise line usually comes in November, though they often get cancelled because the weather's so bad they can't dock. So during this period we get lots of visitors, and because of that I sell a lot of yarn in the local yarn shop up here over the summer period. So it's a very busy time for me dyeing yarns and getting them out there. Sorry, I just had to let a kitty in. She's behind me now. She's probably pretty damp because she's been outside and it's chucking it down. Yeah, I botanically dye yarns, mostly so. Oh, well, don't knock the tripods. Up there. I botanically dye yarns, mostly sock yarns, and if you've ever botanically dyed wool before, I know it's quite I would like to say trendy, but it's probably the wrong word. It's the thing to try botanically dye yarns at the moment, and it's quite labour intensive unless you're just indigoing. If you do an indigo vat, you just need to pre-soak your yarns and then indigo vat them, so dye them just like you would if you were acid dyeing. Not like it, but you only have to soak the yarns beforehand. But if you botanically dye with most natural dyes, you have to do something called mordanting the yarn first. So it's several stages to get to the point where a yarn is finished. It's all the tying of prepping your skeins, soaking them, mordanting them, which can take, I usually spend a day or two mordanting a big batch of skeins of yarn, and then starting the dyeing process before all the finishing part afterwards. So it's quite labour intensive, and I just took a big batch into the shop, like I said, and so that's took up a lot of time, and I've got some new bases and I've been mordanting some of those. This week I'm going to focus on the ones that I've mordanted at the end of last week, dyeing those ones up for the Etsy shop rather than for the local yarn shop. I took in a big batch 2 weeks ago, but we've had a lot of boats in, so I imagine that's getting pretty low stocked. So if not the end of this week, then certainly the beginning of next week, I need to do a massive stock for the shop. I'm trying to think how many bases I've got. Hopefully I have enough base yarns for that. But the new bases that I usually stock, I focus on two main bases, which is the ones I like to work on for the shop, and that's superwash merino nylon, is it 75/25 or, yeah, I think so, and superwash merino bamboo. I love both bases, and they both have their advantages. Obviously, the nylon, great for socks. I love dyeing sock yarns. I love knitting socks when I have chance. And the bamboo one, again, you can use for socks, but also for shawls and such like. So that's why I like to have the two different bases in the shop. My own shop, I also have those bases, but I also have merino silk. But I wanted to introduce some new ones and try. Basically, I want to try new bases for myself too. So I've got some non-superwash BFL I'm dyeing up. I've got some BFL nylon I'm dyeing up to add to the shop this week. And then I have some other bases coming up, which I have the bases for, I just haven't mordanted yet. Again, like I said, it takes quite a bit of time. And if you've got too many bases on the go, they all look
mostly look the same when they're undyed, so it can get just, I'm looking at skin and I can't remember which one it is now, so I try not to dye too many bases at once. So I'll dye one or two that I can keep separate and then do a couple more bases, otherwise I'm just going to get myself in a complete pickle. But I do have some merino tencel which I'm tempted to hold back a bit for myself. I've got some sparkle sock yarn coming out as well soon. So that's my plans, and I'm going to play around with some different dyes for this one for Etsy. I have some stuff I've had stashed waiting. It's having the time to be able to do it. So it takes up a lot of time, and running a business takes up a lot more time than you imagine when you first set out. I've had this yarn business for over a year now, and it takes up a lot more time. It's not the dyeing part. I love dyeing the yarns. That's what I love doing. It's the other parts that I'm not so keen on that take the time, like photographing and uploading to Etsy, or designing. I don't mind designing things like yarn labels, but they always take longer than you expect. They usually take 3 times longer than you think. Oh, this is half an hour job. No. An afternoon's job, perhaps. Just things take time. So yes, that's my plans, both Fibre and Etsy and so on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm hopefully planning. Let's think what else I'm doing. This is my youngest's up here at the moment from college, and I plan on heading south for a brief holiday middle of next month to visit my oldest son, and then maybe go to Glastonbury for a couple of days. I went to Glastonbury in March after EYF with my mum, and we only had 2 nights there. I'd like to do maybe 3 nights there and spend a bit more time. There was a couple of places I've yet to get to because of time constraints and such like. Mum had never been to Glastonbury, so I had to take her to the main places. So there's a few places that I haven't been, and I've been to Glastonbury a few times now, so I would like to do that. And then if I've got time and I can time it right, there is our first roller derby league match, or bout as it's called, in Inverness. I'm hoping to go there on the way north. I'm not on the team because I haven't passed my minimum skills yet, but it'd be really good to watch our first bout against Inverness. So we shall see. But hopefully I'll have another podcast up before then. I'll have a bit more details of what's happening. Other than that, it's just dyeing lots of yarn and taking my youngest to touristy sites. I've always seen them all now. There's very little to do in Orkney in the summer. I tell a lie. Depends. If you're a visitor, there's lots to do in Orkney. If you're a resident, once you've been to the touristy bits, the usual places, and you've seen them a couple of times, you can't just keep going all the time. So we're kind of limited for what there is for teenagers to do. And although he's a late teen, he's still a teen. Yes. PlayStation. So yeah, I think that's it for this podcast. I'm hoping it hasn't dragged on too long, this one. I keep meaning to make them shorter, and they don't seem to get much shorter. I think this one will be a little bit shorter. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you'll come back. If you like, please hit the like and subscribe. It'll be somewhere down here, somewhere this side, don't know. And hopefully I will see you very shortly, maybe with some spinning tutorials. Somebody asked me about spinning tutorials, so I might upload those too, but they'll be separates. So let's say goodbye from Willow. Say bye bye, Willow. Grumpy cat. And goodbye, and I shall hopefully see you again soon.